Hello ladies and gents and all you updated lovers out there, I welcome you to this episode. Today is update time. I want to update the two firmware elements that run here on this Radiomaster TX16S, the EdgeTX firmware and the Multi-Module firmware. This radio has an internal 4-in-1 RF module, so this runs the Multi-Module firmware. And I want to bring the two firmware elements, EdgeTX and the Multi-Module firmware, to the latest versions. The update process on the Radiomaster MT12 here is almost identical to that on the Radiomaster TX16S, and if there are any differences I will tell you, of course. So in the end, after this video, you will know how to update the TX16S, the two firmware elements, and the Radiomaster MT12. What we're going to do is we will go to the EdgeTX website and download all the necessary files for the EdgeTX update. The firmware files, of course, the firmware files come in a zip archive that contains all the firmware files for all the supported radios. Then we will download the SD card content that is specific to the model, especially, or to be more precise, for the screen model here on the radio. This radio has a relatively large, high-resolution color touchscreen, whereas the MT12 has a low-resolution, relatively small monochrome display. And the SD card content is separated for the, displays on the radio. But you will see that in detail when we are on the website. And we will download a sound pack, so we have the basic sounds for the radio. Then we will hop over to the multimodule.org website and download the proper firmware files, the multimodule firmware files. Starting with version 1.3.4, the developers have separated between surface transmitters and air transmitters, so I will download the air version for the multi-module firmware, and here I have running the surface version. But again, you will see that in detail when we are on the multimodule.org website. Before we start, please let me remind you, if you like the video, if you find it somehow helpful, please hit the like and the subscribe buttons, and if you're really cool, then by all means go ahead and buy me a coffee. My eternal gratitude is yours. And now let me show you the current versions running on this TX16S real quick, and then we will start downloading the necessary files. For this, go to System menu, then one page to the left. Then you are on the I page here, on the information page. Here you see the version. This is firmware EdgeTX TX16S version 2.9.4 Providence. And if you hit the roller, then you see this informations, the version information about the multi-module firmware. On the MT12, it is virtually identical. You click on the Sys button on the MT12, then you click the page to the left button once, page left once, then you see the information screen, you see the version information of the EdgeTX, and on this screen you have an option which you can select with the roller to show the version information of the multi-module. Here on the TX16S, since this is a touch-enabled display, you can tap to this icon here on the left top corner, then radio settings, then and here is the information of the firmware, of the EdgeTX firmware. Then you can tap modules RX version, and here you see the version information of the multi-module. And that's it. Now let's gather all the files we need. For downloading the files for EdgeTX, for the EdgeTX update, please go to the website edgetx.org, and here you will find the link Get EdgeTX, and we will use this link later on. But before that, please let me show you another thing. Here on the top right corner here of this website, you will see another link, EdgeTX/EdgeTX, and here you will get, with this link, you will get to the GitHub project of the EdgeTX. And on this side, you will see here this link plus 41 releases. If you click this link, then you will get to all the releases available for this firmware here. Here you will see the most recent stable version, Centurion 2.10.1, but you will also see older versions, for example here the 2.10.0, or release candidates. And if you scroll further down, then you will see Providence 2.9.4. This is the version currently installed on my TX16S. And if you wanna, for some reason, download and use older versions of the firmware, then you can do this. If you don't see the download links, please expand this group here, this assets group, and then you will see all the links available for this version. You will also see here this nightly entry. This is well, the firmware release, firmware version that is built nightly, every night with an automated build. This contains all the newest and latest funky shit which was committed at this point by the developers. So if you are looking for the newest funkiest functions, then you can use these firmware versions, but please be aware that these firmware versions may or may not work, and they may or may not be stable. So please use this with caution. But if you wanna try it out for some reason, then this is the way to go. So then let me go back to the EdgeTX website. Let me go to the Get EdgeTX, and here we will need these three links here: EdgeTX Firmware Direct Download, SD card downloads, and sound packs download. The other options here I will ignore for now. Companion, this is the EdgeTX Companion software, desktop software with which you can, well, program and organize your radio. A very, very great way to do this, but unfortunately the MT12 is not fully supported yet. But later on, I guess I will do a video about the EdgeTX Companion software. This is a really cool software, and well, maybe I do it with the MT12 or wait until the MT12 is fully supported by this software, or I do it with the TX16S. We will see. So first, let us download the firmware. EdgeTX Firmware Direct Download. In my browser, I will get asked where I will save it. Here in this folder, EdgeTX Firmware Zip Archive. I'm running a German version of Windows, so this is in German here. Then SD card downloads. This will bring us again to a GitHub page with all the same features, if you will, as before. You can download older versions if you like. And here in the assets group, you see all the download options. And on the SD card, you now have to choose the right zip archive. This is what I mentioned earlier, that the SD card content is well separated between the display models. Here we have for the TX16S, I will need the C480 by 272. The TX16S has a color display, C, with a resolution of 480 by 272 pixels. So I will need this zip archive. For the MT12, you will need BW128 by 64 because the MT12 has a black and white display with a resolution of 128 by 64 pixels. And if you're unsure what you should download for your radio, there is an SD card JSON file here, which you can download and open with any text editor. I open it directly here with my Notepad++, and this gives you this list here. And just search for your radio in this list, for example, the Radiomaster MT12, this is this one here, and then you will see here what you need. BW128 by 64. So, for example, if you have a Jumper T12 and you're unsure what file you need, what SD card content you should download, then BW128 by 64 is the right SD card file. Okay, then I will have already downloaded it. I click again here on C, just to be sure, speichern, yes, and I will save this here in the same place. Okay, now we have the firmware file and we have the SD card content. Now we need the sound pack. Again, click Get EdgeTX, sound packs downloads, and here we have some versions, different language versions, EN for English, DE for German, and so on. For English, you have multiple versions, Great Britain English, British English, US English, and with different voices, I guess, Libby, Ryan, Guy, Michelle, and Sarah. You choose what you like. I will choose the standard English version here, the Sounds EN 2.10.0 zip. And I will save this again at the same place. Okay, very well. Now we have everything we need for the EdgeTX update. And now let us hop over to the multimodule.org website. And here on the top bar here you have firmware download. Click this link and then you will see this page. Here on the left side, multi-module selection, you can select your radio. In my case, let me type in Radiomaster, then you have here the Radiomaster MT12. and further down the list you have Radiomaster TX16S. I will choose TX16S because I want to update the multi-module on my TX16S. But for the MT12, well, you choose MT12. TX16S here. This pre-fills out some of the parameters here in the file filters list. This is everything okay here. And starting with version 1.3.4, you have a new option here, the firmware type. This is new to 1.3.4. Here you can select air, surface, or EU LBT. In my case, I will select air because the TX16S, at least in my case, is used as an air transmitter. I will use it for drone flying, so I choose air. For the MT12, you will most likely choose surface, but I choose air. Again, for the MT12, surface. For the TX16S, usually air. And channel order, I choose AETR, aileron, elevator, throttle. Rather, I always choose this channel order. You may have a different liking here, but I choose AETR for the MT12 and the TX16S here. And this, well, the filter is now complete, and now we have only one binary file left here, the STM serial AETR air v 1.3.4.0. This is the binary file we need. This is the firmware file we need. And here is a little problem, if you will. If you read this text, OpenTX, EdgeTX radios with small LCD screens, e.g. Radiomaster MT12, will not display files with names longer than 32 characters when browsing the SD card from the radio menu. So this firmware type is new to version 1.3.4. And this part here, this part in the name, this air part in this case, or this SFC part, if you choose surface here, this SFC part, this is new in the file name. And this makes the file name longer than 32 characters. On the TX16S, this is not a problem, but on the MT12, this is a problem because you copy this file to the firmware folder. This is where the file must reside. You copy this file to the firmware folder, then you start your radio, go to the system menu, then there to the SD card content, open the firmware folder, and you see nothing. There is this file, this file is not available. And this is because the name is too long on the MT12. On the TX16S, this is not a problem, but on the MT12, this will be a problem. So what I do, and you can make it however you like, what I do is I save this file and remove this air part. And with this file name, I'm safe. I would be safe on the MT12, and I'm safe, of course, on the TX16S. You can make it however you like to do it, but I make it this way. Please make sure that the file name length does not exceed 32 characters if you are using the MT12, for example. So I save this file now, and now I have everything I need. I have the files needed for the EdgeTX update, and I have files for the multi-module update. Here on the left side, this is our download destination, where all the files I just downloaded are now. The EdgeTX firmware file, the zip archive with all the EdgeTX firmware files, the SD card content, and the sounds pack. And here is the binary for the multi-module update. Okay, let me extract the required files from this firmware zip archive here real quick. Here you have to choose the right files or file for your radio. Here is a file called MT12 and then a hash code in the back. And here we have the TX16S. I will take these two files and bring it over to my folder, MT12 and TX16S. I will use the TX16S file. Of course, I'm updating the TX16S, but if you're updating the MT12, then use the file named MT12. So this is the file I need. For the MT12, you would need this file here. Now we have the firmware file. Now let me create the folder SD card and open this SD card. As you can see, this structure here, this folder structure is identical to this structure here. and I will unpack this in this SD card folder. Now I have in this SD card folder my new SD card content, the downloaded SD card content. And let me download or extract, let me extract the sound pack, the folder sounds. I just drop over here. Okay. And now we have extracted everything we need for the update. Now, first, I will take all of that, select it, Control C to copy it, and I now select, I'm now in this folder here. The focus is now in this folder here. Control V for paste. And yeah, well, the operating system asks me what I want to do with the existing files. I want to overwrite them. And now I have my new downloaded files at the SD card here. Don't you worry. If you have custom files here on this already on the SD card, for example, if you have custom images you created or custom scripts you have made for yourself, then don't worry, they will not get overwritten. They stay where they are. They will just be overwritten if they have a name, the same name as a file has on the downloaded part. Then of course it will be overwritten. But as long as the file name is different from the files which come from the download, then they will stay. This is not a problem. So your custom files will be there after the update. Now I will take the sounds folder and simply drop it from the left to the right. And now again, it overrides the existing sound files, the system sound files. If you have made your own sounds, for example, your own announcements or announcement sound files, then of course they will be there after the update. And now let me copy the required binary files, the firmware files, the multi-module file and the TX16S binary file. And these files I copy to firmware. And now the two files are here. And now we're ready. Our SD card is now ready. I have the SD card in the SD card reader. I can remove it from the SD card reader here on the PC and bring it back to the TX16S and do the update there. And this is what we're going to do right now. We will see us again, I will see you again here on the TX16S on the desk, and then we'll do the update. To do the actual EdgeTX firmware update, you have to bring the radio in the so-called bootloader mode. For this, on the TX16S, the T1 and T4 trim switches have to be pushed to the inside at the same time, and then the radio has to be turned on. But before I do that, on the MT12 it's a bit different. It's not T1 and T4, it is T1 and T2. Those are the two trim switches on top of the steering wheel mount. The T1 and T2 switches on the MT12 has to be pushed to the inside, and then the power on or the radio has to be powered on. So I do this now on the TX16S, T1 and T4. I bring it to the inside, push them to the inside, hold them, and now I turn on the power. Now release every button, and now you see we are in the bootloader mode. Write firmware, this is what we want to do. Write firmware. Now I choose the TX16S, the EdgeTX firmware file, not the multi-module firmware file, the EdgeTX firmware file. In this case, it is the TX16S firmware file. On the MT12, of course, you will have the MT12 firmware file. Now enter to select file, and now hold and long to flash. Hold the roller to flash. And now the EdgeTX firmware is being flashed to the radio. I will do this in real time to give you a feeling about how long this process takes. It goes quite quick here. Almost done. Very well. And the EdgeTX firmware is now complete. The update is now complete. So I choose exit. Again, on the MT12 it is the same process, just select the other firmware file, the MT12 firmware file, and you have to push T1 and T2 to the inside to enter bootloader mode. If I now go to the system menu, radio settings, and here to the info, then you see I have version 2.10.1 Centurion, now EdgeTX version here flashed on this radio. Now let us flash or update the multi-module firmware. For this, go to the third icon from the left, this SD card symbol here, firmware, the folder firmware, and now MTM serial RETR. Again, if you don't see the file on the MT12, make sure that the file name length is does not exceed 32 characters. It is important. So I choose here this file, the MTM serial RETR v1.3.4, and Flash Internal Multi is the option to choose. Flash Internal Multi, Flash Device. Again, I do this in real time to give you a feeling about how long this takes. And well, a cup of coffee. Again, the reminder, if you like the video, if you find it helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. This will really help the channel. And if you are really cool, then please, by all means, go ahead and buy me a coffee. My eternal gratitude is yours. And now we're almost done with flashing the multi-module firmware. Well done. Final. We are finished now. Now let's go back to the radio settings, to the info. 2.10.1 is the EdgeTX version, and the modules version is now 1.3.4.0. And that's it. We now successfully updated all the two firmware modules to the latest versions. That's it for now, for today. Thank you very much for staying with me until the end. It's quite a long video, but I guess it was necessary to do it in a proper form. And well, if you like the video again, then please like it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and then we will see us again here very soon on this channel. Until then, goodbye, servus.